Before moving to Victoria, BC, you need to hear this. Because Victoria is one of those places that looks almost perfect from the outside. You see the ocean, the mountains, the harbor, the older character homes, the walkable neighborhoods, and the mild weather, and it's very easy to think this is exactly where I want to live. And for a lot of people, it is. But Victoria, BC is also one of those cities where if you move here without really understanding the lifestyle, the cost, the housing market, the neighborhoods, and the little day-to-day things that locals already know, you can end up choosing, say, the wrong area, overpaying for the wrong type of home, or realizing after the move that this version of Victoria you had in your head isn't really the version you live in. So in this video, I'm going to go through 10 things you absolutely need to know before moving to Victoria, BC. I'm G, I'm a local realtor based here in Victoria, BC, and I'm born and raised here. So if you have any question, my info is on the screen. Now let's get started with today's video. The first thing you need to know is that when people say Victoria, they're usually talking about Greater Victoria, not just the city of Victoria. And this is where a lot of people get confused. You might be looking online and see a home in Langford, or Saanich, or View Royal, or even Oak Bay, and think, okay, that's Victoria. And technically, it is part of the Greater Victoria area, but the lifestyle can be completely different depending on where you land. Because you have the Capital Regional District, which includes 13 municipalities in 3 electoral areas, serving about 460,000 people. So this is not just, say, one small city, where every neighborhood just feels the same. For example, living in downtown Victoria or James Bay is very different from living in Langford. Downtown and James Bay can give you more walkability, older buildings, restaurants, coffee shops, and the inner harbor, plus that classic Victoria feel. Langford, on the other hand, has grown a lot and gives you more newer homes, townhomes, family-friendly neighborhoods, bigger box shopping, and often more space for the money compared to the core. Then, on the other hand, you have Saanich, which is where I live, which is huge. Saanich can feel suburban, rural, university-focused, family-focused, almost like a country-like, depending on the pocket you're in. And Oak Bay feels very different again. It is more established, more expensive, quieter, and has that older, traditional coastal neighborhood feel. So when someone says, I want to move to Victoria, the first question that really should be, what version of Victoria do you actually want? Do you want, say, walkability? Do you want newer construction? Do you want a larger lot? Do you want to be close to the ocean, schools? Do you want to just avoid commuting? Or maybe you want to be in a quieter area? Because those answers will completely change depending on which part of Greater Victoria makes sense for you. And this is why I always tell people not just to search, say, homes for sale in Victoria, BC, and assume just everything is the same. You need to understand the micro markets because Victoria is not one lifestyle. It is a collection of very different lifestyles packed into one region. The second thing you know is Victoria is expensive. That probably doesn't shock everyone. But what does surprise people is how expensive it can really feel compared to the size of the city. A lot of people move here from, say, Vancouver or Toronto and think Victoria will be significantly cheaper. And yes, in some ways it can be cheaper than Vancouver, but it is not cheap. And housing is the big one. As of April 2026, the benchmark price for a single-family home in the Victoria core was $1,339,100. And for condos in the Victoria core, the benchmark was $558,300. So if you are coming here expecting detached homes close to the water for, say, $800,000, that's probably going to be a wake-up call for you. That does not mean there are no options at all. It just means your expectations have to match the market. In the core areas like Victoria, Oak Bay, Esquimalt, and parts of Saanich, you're often paying, say, for the location, character, walkability, and established neighborhoods. Then when you go to, say, Langford, Colwood, and parts of View Royal, you may get newer housing options, more townhomes, and sometimes better value depending on what you are actually looking for. But when you go to, say, the Saanich Peninsula, which is where you have the ferries, the airports, and that sort of stuff, you have Central Saanich, North Saanich, and Sidney, and the lifestyle can be quieter, more rural, and more coastal, and in some areas, more expensive because of land, views, and privacy. But it's not just home prices. You have groceries, gas, insurance, trades, restaurants, services, and pretty much basic home maintenance can feel expensive here. And being on the island can add cost in general because labor can be tight, materials can be more expensive, and if you buy an older home, which is very common here, you need to budget in property repairs and upgrades. So before moving here, do not just ask, can I afford the purchase price? ask, can I afford the lifestyle after I move here? Because those are two very different questions. The third thing you need to know is that Victoria, BC real estate is a very neighborhood specific market. People love to ask, is Victoria a buyer's market or a seller's market? And the honest answer, it depends. Depends on the price point, the property type, the neighborhood, the condition the home itself is in. But it also depends on whether the home has a suite, parking, views, land, or updates, or does it have a weird layout in general? From the Victoria Real Estate Board, they reported 643 properties were sold as of April 2026, which was almost flat compared to April of 2025. But there were 3,710 active listings as of the end of April of 2026, which was 8.3% higher than the year before. The board described the market as balanced, with more choices for buyers. But even at balanced markets, good homes can still sell quickly. But a well-priced character home in desirable Saanich pocket can get a very different response than an overpriced condo downtown. A newer home, say in Langford, can behave differently than an older home in Oak Bay. But a townhome with lower strat fees, good parking, can attract a very different buyer pool than a condo with high fees and limited storage, even in downtown Victoria. So if you're moving here, you cannot just look at the average price and think, okay, I understand the market. You need to look at what is actually happening in the area and the price range you care about. For example, let's say your budget is $700,000. Your options may be condos, townhomes in Langford, older homes that need quite a bit of work, but even those are rare, or homes that are further out depending on the area. Otherwise, if your budget is $1.2 million, that could mean a detached home in some areas. But it may still not get you exactly what you expect in the most desirable parts of the Victoria core. And if you're coming here from somewhere where houses are newer, bigger, or sit on larger lots for less money, Victoria can feel pretty frustrating at first. This is why local strategy really matters. The goal is not to just buy a home in Victoria. The goal is to buy the right home in the right area with the right expectations. Not accidentally buy, say, a property that does not fit your lifestyle at all. The fourth thing you need to know is that Victoria has some of the best weather in all Canada. But that does not mean every day feels all sunny and warm. Victoria is known for having a mild climate and is one of the reasons so many people choose to move here. Winters are generally easier than most Canada. You're usually not dealing with, say, months of freezing temperatures, heavy snow, or extreme cold. Victoria is often described as having Canada's mildest winter climate, with lower rainfall than many other parts of the West Coast. But here's what people do not always understand. The winter can still feel great. It can be damp. It can be windy. It can be very dark early on. And even if it is not brutally cold, the long stretch of cloudy, wet weather can get some people feeling down. The other thing people do not always expect is that Victoria summers are often dry and comfortable, but not always unbearably hot. If you are moving here from somewhere with hot summer nights, you may be surprised by how cool it can feel, say, near the water or in the evenings. You might have a beautiful sunny day, but if you are close to the ocean and the wind picks up, you may still want a jacket. That is very Victoria. You can have sunglasses, a hoodie, and a rain jacket all in the same week. But overall, you like being outside year-round? Victoria is very hard to beat. You can walk, hike, golf, bike, run, paddleboard, or go to the beach at times a year when many Canadian cities are buried in snow. So the weather is a huge positive. Just do not move here thinking it's going to be like, say, California or Kelowna. It is very mild, beautiful, coastal, and very livable, but it still feels gloomy at times. The fifth thing you need to know is that island life is real. And I do not mean that in a cute Instagram way. I mean, you are literally living on an island and that affects your life. Say, if you want to go to Vancouver, you are not just hopping in a car and driving over. You're planning around a ferry, or maybe you're flying. BC Ferry lists the Victoria Sports Bay to Vancouver Tsawwassen sailing duration at about 1 hour and 34 minutes, but that's just sailing and it all depends on weather and other factors. But you have to factor in driving to the terminal, waiting, loading, unloading, and getting from Tsawwassen into Vancouver. So a quick trip to Vancouver can easily become a full day commitment. And during long weekends, holidays, summer, and busy travel periods, ferries can book up quick. Delays happen and cancellations happen too. Weather can affect travel, and this matters more than ever than people think. If you have family in Vancouver, the Fraser Valley, Calgary, or Toronto, you need to understand that visiting is a little more involved. And if you run a business that depends on shipping, supplies, or frequent mainland access, you need to plan that out. And if you have medical appointments, sports tournaments, work events, or family emergencies off island, you need to understand the logistics behind that. And for a lot of people, this is actually part of the appeal. Victoria feels a little bit more removed, slower pace of life. It feels calmer than Vancouver. You feel like you're in your own little world sometimes. But the separation is both a pro and a con. You get the beauty and lifestyle of Vancouver Island, but you also get the planning that comes with island life. So before you move here, ask yourself honestly, will that bother you? Because for some people, it's no big deal. But for others, after 1, 2, or even more years, they realize they feel a little bit too disconnected from the mainland. Now we're halfway through the video. If you have any questions, or if you're looking to buy or sell anywhere in Greater Victoria and you need some guidance, feel free to call or text me anytime. Again, I'm G, my info is on the screen. Let's continue with the video. The sixth thing you need to know is that the best neighborhood in Victoria is not the same for everyone. This is where people can make expensive mistakes. They'll search best neighborhoods in Victoria, BC, and they'll see names like Oak Bay, James Bay, Gordon Head, Broadmead, Langford, Sidney, and all these areas can be great. But the best area for you depends on your day-to-day life. If you want, say, walkability, coffee shops, restaurants, and being close to, say, downtown, areas like James Bay, Fairfield, Fernwood, or Cook Street Village might appeal more to you. But if you want, say, more suburban family feel, parts of Saanich, such as Royal Oak, which is where I live, Gordon Head, Broadmead, or the West Shore might make more sense. And if you want newer homes, more modern development, Langford and Colwood may be worth looking at. But if you want a quieter, coastal, small-town feel, you'll be looking at parts of, say, Central Saanich, Sidney, or other parts of the Saanich Peninsula, which could fit better for your lifestyle. Now, if you want luxury, privacy, views, or larger properties, then areas like Oak Bay in the Uplands, 10 Mile Point, Cordova Bay, Broadmead, Bear Mountain, and certain waterfront pockets may come into play. But here's the part that people miss. You should not just choose based on how a neighborhood looks online. You should drive at it at different times of the day. Say, go in the morning, go in the evening, the weekend, go when it's raining, go during, say, school pickup time or rush hour. Because some areas feel amazing on a quiet Sunday afternoon, but feel very different during, say, weekday traffic. And some neighborhoods that do not even look flashy online are actually incredibly practical and livable once you understand the schools, parks, bus routes, and commute patterns. Victoria is a lifestyle city. You have neighborhood choice, which matters a lot. And a home can feel absolutely beautiful, but if the location does not match your rhythm, you may not be loving where you are. The seventh thing you need to know is that Victoria traffic surprises people. People coming from Vancouver or Toronto might laugh when locals complain about traffic here. And fair enough. Victoria traffic is not the same as sitting on the Highway 1 in Vancouver for hours. But for the size of the region, traffic can still feel very frustrating. The main issue is that Greater Victoria has certain choke points. If you live in, say, Langford or Colwood and commute into downtown Victoria, that drive can be very different depending on the time of day. If you rely on, the Pat Bay Highway, Mackenzie, Tilcombe, Douglas, or Blanchard, or even the bridges, small delays can get you stuck very quickly. And because Victoria is older and not built out like big modern grid cities, some roads can feel narrow, winding, or congested in ways people do not expect. Parking can also be a big deal. If you are buying a condo, do not just assume parking is included. If you're buying an older home, check the driveway, the street parking, and whether there's actually room for the vehicles you have. If you have, say, a truck, an RV, boat, or an extra vehicle, this matters even more. And if you're planning to, say, bike, Victoria can be great for that. The region has major cycling routes and multi-use trails like the Galvin Goose, Lochside, and the E&N Rail Trail. And cycling is a noticeable part of local transportation culture. But again, it depends on where you live. Some areas are very bike-friendly, others are much more car-dependent. So before you choose a home, map your actual life. Where do you work? Where do your kids go to school? Where do you shop, or where do you go to gym? Do you like to go out on the weekends? Are you near friends and families? Because a home that looks perfect online can become very annoying if every single part of your life requires a 30-minute drive just to get through traffic. The eighth thing you need to know is that Victoria has a lot of older housing. And depending on your personality, that can be either part of the charm or a major headache. Many buyers love Victoria because of the character homes. You get older houses with charm, mature gardens, established streets, original details, and even cove ceilings, wood floors, and neighborhoods that really feel like they're part of history. But older homes can also mean older electrical, older plumbing, drainage issues, oil tanks, perimeter drains, insulation concerns, and even asbestos, knob-and-tube wiring, older roofs, and a lot of other things you have to consider that do not always match to modern living. So if you're moving here from a city where most of the housing is newer, you need to prepare yourself. A home in Victoria may look beautiful from the outside, but the due diligence really matters here. You need to understand what has been updated, what has not been updated, and what could become expensive later on. This is also where suites come into, say, conversation. Many buyers in Victoria look for homes with mortgage helpers because the price of, say, detached homes is high. And a suite can be a great way to offset costs, but you need to understand the legality behind it. The zoning, the ceiling height, parking, insurance, permits, and other things, especially tenancy rules, and whether the suite actually works for, say, your long-term plans. And the same thing with strata properties. You have condos and townhomes that can be great options, especially if you want lower maintenance, but you need to read the strata documents very carefully and look at the building, look at the contingency reserve fund, look at the depreciation reports, and the minutes, insurance, bylaws. There's a lot of documentation you want to look at so you know what you're buying into. Look at the rental rules, pet rules, parking, storage, and upcoming repairs, and especially special levy history and future special levies that may be planned. The wrong strata can cost you later on. So when buying in Victoria, do not just fall in love with the vibe. The vibe matters, but the details matter much more. The ninth thing you need to know is that Victoria can be quieter than most people expect. This is a big one for people moving from, say, larger cities. Victoria is beautiful, active, outdoorsy, and full of great local spots. But it's not Vancouver, it's not Toronto, and it's not Calgary. It's not a big nightlife city, but there are restaurants, breweries, coffee shops, events, markets, music, sports, and lots to do. But the overall pace is slower. For many people, that is exactly why they move here. They want calm, they want nature, they want to be near the ocean, and they want a place that feels safe, manageable, and more relaxed. But if you're expecting huge city energy, late night options everywhere, and endless shopping, plus massive concerts every weekend, and a fast-paced downtown lifestyle, Victoria may feel pretty small. And that is not a bad thing. It just depends on what you want. Victoria is more of a city where lifestyle matters more than hustle. Your weekends might look like hiking at Mount Doug, walking Dallas Road, going to local coffee shops, taking the kids to the park, golfing, biking, or going to the beach. But you could also head up island too as another option. And if this sounds amazing, you'll probably love it here. But if this sounds too quiet, you may want to spend more time here before committing yourself. One thing I always recommend is visiting during different seasons. Do not only just visit, say, in July or August, when everything looks perfect. Visit in November, January. Visit when it is raining. Visit when it gets dark early. That gives you much more honest feel for whether Victoria is actually right for you year round. The 10th thing you need to know is that moving to Victoria works best when you have a plan. I know that sounds obvious, but a lot of people come here with a very general idea. They say, we want to move to Victoria, but they have not narrowed down the lifestyle, the budget, the property type, the commute, the school needs, the timing, or even the trade-offs. And in a market like Victoria, that can make the process pretty stressful. Before you move here, I would be thinking about a few things. First, what area actually fits your life? Not just what looks pretty online, but what fits your daily routine. Second, what type of home makes sense? Detached house, townhome, condo, half duplex, acreage, newer build, older character home. Maybe you need something with a suite. Maybe you want something with low maintenance. These all create very different lifestyles. Third, what are you willing to compromise on? Because in Victoria, most buyers have to compromise somewhere. It might be location. It might be on the size or the age of the home. Maybe they're thinking about, oh, I want a home with updates, but they can't find that in the price range. Maybe they want yard space, but they can't find that. Or parking or commute time. The people who struggle the most are usually the ones who want, say, the perfect home in the perfect area, fully updated, with tons of space, close to the ocean, that's walkable, quiet, and under budget. And that home, unfortunately, doesn't usually exist. So the key is figuring out what actually matters most for you. And fourth, you need to understand timing. Are you moving here in 3 months, 6 months, a year? Do you have to sell first in order to purchase here? Or do you want to say rent here first, experience the lifestyle before actually committing? Are you moving here with, say, kids? Or are you relocating for work? Or maybe you're retired? Because trying to buy before you arrive can be difficult depending on your situation. And all those details change depending on the strategy. Some people might need to rent first and really learn the city and figure out which pockets work best for them. Some people already know the area and are ready to buy. But some people need temporary housing. Some people may need to sell first in order to purchase. But some people need to line up financing before they even start looking. Because there's no one-size-fits-all answer. But there's one rule I would follow. Do not make a major move to Victoria based on only pretty photos and online listings. Get local context first. Because once you understand the areas, the market, the lifestyle, and the trade-offs, the decision becomes a lot easier. So those are 10 things you need to know before moving to Victoria, BC. And I want to be clear, this video is not meant to scare you away from Victoria. I love living here. I'm born and raised in Victoria, BC, but there is a reason why so many people want to move here because of the ocean, the weather, the scenery, and the neighborhoods, plus the slower lifestyle. It really can be an amazing place to live, but it's not perfect. It is expensive, the housing can be older, plus the neighborhoods are very different from each other. You also have traffic and ferry travel, which, let's be honest, can be annoying. The winters can feel gray, and if you choose the wrong area altogether based on your lifestyle, you may not enjoy it as much as you thought you would. So, my best advice is simple. Do your homework before you move here. Understand the different areas. Get clear on your budget, and think about your real day-to-day life. And if you're thinking about buying or selling anywhere in Greater Victoria, feel free to reach out to me anytime. You can call or text me anytime. My info is on the screen. No pressure at all. I help people understand the different neighborhoods, the real estate market, and what actually makes sense for their situation. And if you found this video helpful, like, subscribe, drop a comment about what your favorite neighborhoods are in Victoria, BC. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.